G'day guys, Dean from Blog for the Blood God here, and I recently did a video talking about an undefeated Chaos Space Marines list that I ran at a few recent events. And what I'd like to do today is take one of the units from that list, the Master of Executions, and show you how I wrote him into the list, how I wielded him on the tabletop, and some of the expected results that you can get. Because without this unit, without the Master of Executions in my list, I wouldn't have got anywhere near the level of success that I did. So he was a pivotal key character. So I want to really break down how he works, how to wield him, and how to write him to the list. So without further ado, here's the Master of Executions Masterclass. Alright guys, let's talk about how to get the Master of Executions into your list, because obviously that's the best place to start. Now, the first thing worth noting is it has to be an Emperor's Children detachment. Now, you can technically run him with other legions, and he still slaps pretty hard, but he doesn't slap anywhere near as hard if he's not an Emperor's Children, and I'll explain why in a moment, but it is critical for you to get the massive explosive damage out of him. He must be Emperor's Children. So, what do you do first? So you put the Master of Execution into your list, that's simple. You make him your Warlord. Now, he needs to take the Flames of Spite Warlord trait. And basically what this does is it means that on a 6+ to wound, he does a mortal wound in addition to any other damage, right? Doesn't sound that busted on face value. It's been a Warlord trait since fucking 2-3 years ago. It's one of the oldest Warlord traits in the game. But what it does is it stacks with his Acts of Dismemberment, which has the same rule, which is a 6+ to wound, does a mortal wound. So now what happens is, when you roll a 6 to wound, you're doing 2 mortal wounds in addition to your other damage. And this stacks with Veterans of the Long War, because it's a 6+. If you're getting +1 to your wound rolls, now when you roll a 5, that's doing 2 mortal wounds, right? So that's the first really powerful component, is the Flames of Spite and the Acts of Dismemberment on the Master of Executions. Very powerful. But you might be wondering, well, why does he need to be an Emperor's Children? And here's why. They have a relic called the Raiment Revulsive. And what this does is it allows you to re-roll charges, hits, and wound rolls. So what this allows you to do is, when you're rolling to hit, if you've got, say you've got Prescience on him, he's now getting Death to the False Everything on a 5+. So you roll your 6 attacks, you leave any 5s, you re-roll everything else, because it's re-roll any hits, not just fails. So you re-roll everything, and you end up with, out of your 6 attacks, you end up hitting about 10 times. Then, with your 10 hits, you now roll to wound, and again, you leave any 5s and 6s, and you re-roll everything else. And now, of those 10, you're probably going to do, like, pretty much all 10, maybe 9 are going to wound, because he's wounding most things on a 2+, because he's strength 8, and you've put Veterans of the Long War on him. So he's wounding most things on a 2+, you're going to wound with almost all 10. But of those 10, you're probably going to get 5 or 6 dice that are a 5+, which means you're doing probably 10 to 12 mortal wounds, plus they have to make 10 save throws. So it's massively powerful. So, Flames of Spite, Warlord trait on the Master of Executions, and the relic is the Raiment Revulsive. That's how you write him into the list. Now, a few things worth noting with the Emperor's Children part as well, which makes him really powerful, is you've got the Honor the Prince stratagem, which is really good on him, which basically means after you roll your charge dice, you look at the 2 results, and you can change one of them into a 6. So this basically means if you're going from a deep strike charge, like say you've come out of a Dreadclaw or something, which we'll go through later, it basically means you roll 2 dice. As long as one of them is a 3, you're in. And if you do roll like a 1 and a 2, or Snake Eyes, you can CP re-roll it, use the command re-roll, and then if one of those 2 is a 3, you can then change the other, because the Honor the Prince isn't a re-roll, it's a modifier. So you can re-roll and then change the dice. So the probability is in the 99% range. It's so high that from a deep strike, you're going to get in with this guy. So, but that's locked to Emperor's Children, which is another reason for why he has to be in an Emperor's Children detachment, so that you get that. The other one that he has is called Excess of Violence. And basically what this does is it means every time a model is slain by his attacks, at the end, after resolving his attacks, he can make 1 additional attack with the same weapon into the same unit. So what this means is, like we just said, you're going to be doing 10 mortal wounds plus 10 saving throws that they have to make. So you're killing, like, let's say you're going to a unit of 30, conscripts or something. you're going to kill at least 10 of them, but you're probably going to kill like nearly 15 out of your 6 attacks. But that now means you have to make another 15 attacks. So that excess of violence stratagem is really, really good on him, because it turns him into an absolute blender into Horde, or even more elite things, like say you go into Terminators and you only kill 4 of them with your 6 attacks. Well, now you get to make another 4 attacks, you know, which means it almost doubles your damage. That excess of violence on the Master of Executions, it functions similar to a fight twice, in the way that it allows him to just go in and do explosive damage in combat. But it's better than a fights twice, because they can't CP interrupt. Because this isn't like after he kills things, he gets to fight again. It's just after resolving those attacks, make a number of additional attacks equal to the number of models you killed. So you just go again, instantly. So the Raiment Revulsive, the Honor the Prince, and the Excess of Violence are the 3 stratagems that are locked, or the 3 things that are locked to Emperor's Children that really unlock the power of the Master of Executions. So there's a few other ways that you can run him with other legions, but they're just nowhere near as good. Yeah, so that's how you write him into the list. Now let's talk about how do you actually wield him in a game. There's 2 main delivery methods for this guy. Now remember, he's only a 65-point character, right? So you can actually afford to spend a little bit to, like, deliver him, and it doesn't matter if that delivery method's not useful for other things. However, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that it is useful for other things. So there's 2 methods. One of them is a Dreadclaw, right? That's the Chaos Space Marine's answer to a drop pod. But basically what it does is it drops in like a drop pod, cunt disembarks, kills some shit, but then the Dreadclaw itself can move. So this pairs really well with him, because then you can send him in and then you can fuck off and you can do other stuff with your Dreadclaw, or you can charge as well. There's lots of utility there. And like we said, with the Honor the Prince stratagem, you're going to be able to deep strike him in, disembark, you're 9 inches away, and 99% chance you're getting in. So that's a really powerful delivery method. The downside to that method is people can screen you out and make it so that you're only charging their screening units. So you unit of 10 conscripts here, you know, a couple of units of, you know, stealth suits or something, and it's like this guy has so much explosive damage, you really want to be sending him into a chunky target. So you don't want to be hitting screens. So unless you play it well, that can be a problem. If you've got a competent opponent who's able to put screens out of line of sight so you're not shooting them with your other stuff, that can be a real problem. So my preferred method, and the method that I ran in the 2 events where I went undefeated, was I put him in a Rhino with Chosen with Lightning Claws. It's relevant, you can put anything in there, but I put Chosen with Lightning Claws in the Rhino, and Master of Executions, and a Sorcerer. And the idea here is that little Rhino sits out of line of sight. Being an Emperor's Children, you can redeploy that whole Rhino with everybody inside it for 1 CP. So you basically, no one's killing that turn 1, because you can deploy it over here. If they move things, put their guns, they're aiming at you, and then they get first turn, you go, cool, I'm going to spend a CP and redeploy it over here. Amazing, right? So it's hidden, and then basically at any stage, you can disembark Master of Executions out his 9, Sorcerer out his 9, warp time the Master of Executions a further 6, so he goes 15 inches out of the Rhino, and then you charge with Honor the Prince, which you're getting an average of about 10 inches charge. So you're getting a big 25-inch threat range out of that Rhino. So you could use that for a turn 1 charge in the same way that you would a Dreadclaw, but this can't be screened. There's nothing they can really do to screen that, because you can just, you know, if they put units, you just go around them, like, and because you're redeploying the Rhino, if you see they set up screens here, you just redeploy over here and go behind them. So that's really good, and it also serves as a really good late game counterpunch unit. So you've got that, and then let's say the rest of your list, like mine, was a bunch of Terminator bombs, a bunch of Noise Marines. All of that shit goes in first, blows everything up, and he just sits there as this little nugget, and the second they try to hit your Noise Marines, he just jumps out and countercharges and blows them up. So that's the different ways that you can wield him. Basically, you're looking at either a drop pod that goes in, and he charges turn 1, or you're looking at a Rhino where he's more of a turn 2 or 3 counter-punch unit. I much prefer the Rhino play, but there's a strong argument for the drop pod play. Alright, next part of the Master of Execution's Masterclass is to actually roll some dice and just show you just how fucking powerful this guy is. Alrighty, let's start by rolling out the Master of Execution against, say, 30 conscripts, right? Goes in with 6 attacks, and let's say he's got prescience on him, so he's hitting on 2s, and any 5s or 6s are doing an additional hit. So we've got a 6 there we're going to keep. We're going to re-roll all this. Okay, so we only got 1 6, right? But because of prescience, we actually got a 5 here, which is an extra hit, a 5 here, which is an extra hit, and a 5 here, which is an extra hit. So out of his 6 attacks, he got 10 hits. Now, against those conscripts, he's going to be wounding on 2s. Right, so we got a couple fails there, which is okay, because we've got a 6 there, a 6 there, a 6 there, a 5 there. So what we're going to do is we're going to re-roll all of them, even these 2s and 4s, which would have been successes. Right, so we've got 1 that failed still, and we didn't get any more mortals. So basically now what happens is the guard player would have to make saves, but they're conscripts, and he's AP 3. So no saving throws. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wounds go through that do D3 damage each. So that just kills 9 guys. Plus each one of these does 2 mortal wounds. So 9 guys died, plus another 8 mortal wounds. So you got a total of 17 dead. And now, if you used the stratagem for excess of violence, of those 17 dead, it means you now get to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 additional attacks. So 6 attacks killed 17 guys. How many do you think 17 is going to kill? The answer is a fucking lot. Alright, so as you saw in that example, obviously going in with the Master of Executions into something like a 30-man conscript's blob is insane. He's going to kill all 30 of them several times over. So what you actually can do, and let's use gaunts as an example in this one, is you go, say you've got 2 units of gaunts and they're strung out. Let's use the dice to represent it. You've got a unit of gaunts like this, and another unit of gaunts like this. As long as they're within, I think it's 4 inches of each other, the Master of Executions can actually end in the middle and be within engagement range of both units, right? Because he's got a 2-inch base, means he can be within an inch of him and him. And then what you do is you go, cool, he's got 6 attacks. I'm going to allocate 6 attacks into the unit on the right and 6 attacks into the unit on the left. 3 attacks. 3 attacks in the unit on the right, 3 attacks in the unit on the left. So now let's see what happens when he goes in with just 3 attacks into 30 gaunts. He's going to roll the hit. He's got prescience on him still, so that 5 is going to be 2 hits. We're going to re-roll these and fish. And we got a 6 there as well, and a 3. So we've got 3 hits, but 2 of them generate an additional hit. Alright, so we've got 5 hits out of our 3 attacks. Then we're wounding the gaunts on 2s again. And we roll single 5. Because we put Veterans of the Long War on him, he's doing mortal wounds on 5s. So we're going to re-roll all of these. Okay, so we got 2 5s and then 3 normal wounds. So again, AP 3, so the gaunts are going to get no save, and that's 5 dead gaunts, plus another 4 from the mortal wounds. So 5 dead, plus 4 from the mortal wounds. So now, into that unit, I get to make an additional 9 attacks. Again, these have 5s exploding. So we've got 3 there. We're going to re-roll the rest. We're going to roll those. So you've got an additional 6 hits. Because those ones were all 5+, so they generate an additional hit. So these are all hits. And then again, we are wounding on 2s. So we got mortal, 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 mortal,
mortal. And we're going to fish. So remembering that we killed 9 guys with our first round of attack. Holy shit. 5 out of our first round of attacks. And now we kill 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So 20 dead, plus an additional 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24. So another 24. So those 3 attacks just killed like a ridiculous number of gaunts. And then obviously you're going to do so that's just the 3 onto the right hand squad. Now you're going to do the same onto the squad on the left, and you're going to kill all of them. I've done this a few times where you can actually kill, if your opponent lets you, which they never should, but sometimes they'll have 3 units or 4 units all sort of clustered. And the reason they'll do this is because they might want to have multiple units holding this objective, right? So they might go, okay, cool, couple of gaunts stringing off this way, couple stringing off that way, and a couple stringing off that way, you know, so that they've got multiple units on that objective. And you just go, cool, I'm going to go here with my Master of Executions, so then with an inch of that, that, and that. And then you just go, cool, 2 attacks into that one, 2 attacks into that one, 2 attacks into that one. And let's show you, just to really drive home this point, let's show you what happens if you just allocate 2 of his attacks into a unit of 30 gaunts. So 2 attacks, he's hitting on 2s. Now, we didn't roll any 6s there, or 5s. So I'm going to re-roll both. And okay, so this is a good example of what can go wrong. So we rolled 1 5 and 1 1. So that's actually 2 hits from the 5. Now we roll to wound. Again, bad roll. So let's re-roll those. Alright, so just 2 die. We didn't get any mortal wounds. So that's okay though, because now we get to make 2 additional attacks because 2 died. And look at that. Both of those get an extra, so 4 hits. Then wounds. And we're going to re-roll those. And would you look at that? So now another 4 die, plus 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 12 dead out of 2 attacks. So that's the first unit. Now if you're going to do the second unit, we go cool, rolling to hit, I'm going to re-roll the 3. No, so we just got the explode there, the death to the false everything, and then that's just a normal hit. Wounding the gaunts on 2s. Looking for 5s and 6s. No, so once again, only 2 wounds go through, so that's 2 dead gaunts, 2 additional attacks. Re-rolling, looking for 5s and 6s. There you go. There, death to the false everything. Okay, so this time he killed 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this time he killed 10. So the first went into the first unit, killed 12. Second unit, killed 10. Third unit, with his last 2 attacks, goes in, re-rolling anything that's not a 5. Okay, so they both explode, so he goes 4 attacks. Those 4 attacks, wounding on 2s. Okay, so that one he got 4 wounds and 6 additional mortals, so 4 wounds, so 4 dead gaunts, plus those ones which do 2 mortals, so that one does 2, that one does 2, that one does 2. So he killed 10 with his first volley, so now he gets to make 10 additional attacks. Okay, we've got a 6 there, we've got a 6 there, we've got a 6 there. No 5s, that's fine. Nuts. Alright, so there is hits. And those 5s, sorry, they do additional hits, so 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. And then these are wounding on 2s, with 5s and 6s doing 2 mortals. I'm going to re-roll all that. They fail. They do mortals. So off this second one, the second round of his attacks, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, plus, so that's 7, so plus 14, so that easily killed, those 2 attacks easily killed over 30. So it can be quite swingy. You can go from killing 10 to overkilling 30. But the point is he goes in with 6 attacks, and just then he killed 30, 10, and 12. So he killed, 50 plus gaunts with 6 attacks. So this guy's an absolute blender into Horde. Now, I hear you asking, well, what about like Terminators or something like that, right? Something a little bit chunkier, right? So let's say you go into Terminators. Let's say that they're Space Marine Terminators with Thunderhammer Storm Shield, right? Something a bit chunky. So you go in, you got your 6 attacks into your Terminators. You're cool. I'm going to re-roll everything that's not a 5. Alright, so we've got 2 misses there, but then we've got 3 explodes. 1, 2, 3. Alright? Now, they're T4, so you're going to be wounding them on 2s because you're strength 8 and you have veterans. So, wounding them on 2s, and any 5s and 6s doing the mortals. See, this is into Terminators. Okay, so you got those are the wounds. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's going to take 10 mortal wounds after resolving this. But first he has to make his invulnerable saves of 4 up. He goes like that. Cool. 4 up invulnerable saves. Passes 3. Now these ones you do D3 damage. So the first one, that's 2 damage. The next one, that kills 1 Terminator. That's 2 damage. Kills another Terminator. So you've killed 2. And then you do 10 mortal wounds, which is another 3, right? So you've killed 5 guys. So now you get to make an additional 5 attacks. And one of the guys is wounded as well. So an additional 5 attacks. Again, you're fishing for 5s and 6s. So you've got 1 miss, but you've got 3 explodes. And now rolling to wound, looking for 5s and 6s again, wounding on 2s. So you got those 3, and then okay, so same result, more or less the same result this time. So he's got 6 mortal wounds plus all of these saves to make. So these are the saves. So he passes 3 of them. So there was one guy that was wounded. He takes another wound and then dies. So another guy dies, and then the other guy takes 2 mortal wounds. 2 wounds, sorry. So you killed 6 guys, and he's taken 2, and then additional 6. So you killed 8.5 Terminators with the Master of Execution. So that's another example of him going into a slightly more chunky unit. I'm going to take a minute here to explain a quick piece of theory with prescience, right? So he gets his 6 attacks. If you have prescience and he gets exploding 5s, right, you would reroll anything that's not a 5. Because if you reroll it, the worst case scenario, you've got a 1 in 6 chance of turning that hit into a miss, but you have a 2 in 6 chance of turning that hit into two hits, right? So if you have prescience, the maths is always in your favor to reroll everything. Whereas if you don't have prescience, now you're hitting on 2s still, but you're only getting exploding 6s. And if you're only getting exploding 6s, the maths is actually neutral, right? Because if you've got a hit and you reroll it, you've got a 1 in 6 chance of turning it into a miss, but you've got a 1 in 6 chance of turning it into 2 hits. So it's actually neutral. And in those situations, what you do is you think about it, and if the target that you're attacking surviving is a huge problem, right? Like if it's something that really fucking needs to die, and you think that on average dice you probably don't kill it, that's when you be greedy and you re-roll your hits looking for explodes. But if it's something that's either relatively insignificant and you don't really care too much, like it might be a unit of Kroot or something like that, it's just like, it's not really that big of a deal if they die or not, then you wouldn't be greedy. Or if it's something that you're pretty sure you're going to kill without needing to be greedy, then you don't be greedy. It's not worth the risk. So that's the theory there on when you have prescience, whether or not you reroll. And the same applies for your wound rolls on whether or not you have Veterans of the Long War. So if you use that stratagem, you have the CP and you go, cool, I'm going to put Veterans of the Long War on him. He's now getting 5s and 6s to wound do mortals. Well, in that situation, yes, you would fish, right? But if you don't have Veterans of the Long War, say it's late game and you've run out of CP and he goes in, well, now it's slightly different maths where basically, say you're winning on 2s, you go in and you hit and you wound, but it's not a 6 and therefore it doesn't do mortal wounds. You can basically either keep it and keep the D3 damage that you would do, or you can re-roll it. If you do, you have a 1 in 6 chance of doing no damage, but you have a 1 in 6 chance of doing the same D3 damage plus 2 mortal wounds, which is kind of double damage, right? Because it's mortal wounds, so it's better than just damage. But it's, it is what it is. So in those situations, I apply effectively the same logic. If it's something that I absolutely need to die in this turn and I can't wait, then I'd be greedy and I'd go for it. But if it's something that it's like, I'm probably going to kill it anyway, or it's something where it's like, I don't really care if it dies because, it's not going to kill my Master of Executions in return, and because he's Emperor's Children, he gets always fights first, so he's going to fight before they strike me back anyway, so I'm going to kill him in their turn, and that, it's all good. Well, then you don't be greedy. So that's the thought process on how to wield him in those situations. But yeah. Okay, so let's do one more, just to round it out. Let's say you're going into a Knight Titan, right? So a big toughness 8, chunky bad boy. You're going in with your little 65-point Master of Executions, right? He goes in with his 6 attacks, you just put them all in, and you go, cool. He's got prescience on him, so we're going to reroll everything that's not a 5. Okay, cool. So we got 1 miss, but we got 2 5s, which means 2 additional hits. So there you go. So out of your 6 attacks, he hits 7 times, which is slightly below average, but that's fine. Then, to wound it, we're looking for 3s, because it's toughness 8, we're strength 8, but we have Veterans of the Long War. So we're looking for 3s, and 5s and 6s do 2 mortal wounds. Alright, so, not a great roll. So basically what we've got there is it has to make 5 armor saves, which it's got a 3-up armor save. Let's assume it's just a normal knight. It's got a 3-up armor save. So it's going to get a 6-up save on these 5, and then it's going to cop 8 mortal wounds in addition. So it rolls its 6-up saves, passes 1. These all do D3 damage. Now, if it's a character, he can actually re-roll the damage because of the ability on his data sheet. So let's just leave that though, because I don't think on a D3 re-rolling a 2 is necessarily that important. So he takes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus the 8 from before. So he takes 18 damage into a 9 from a 65-point model. So that's just another example of something that he can go really good into. Let's roll him one more time into a knight just to see for averages. So he goes in. He doesn't roll a single 6 or 5. So that was a very bad roll. Let's re-roll the whole lot. And we turned it around. So we got 1 miss, but then we got 3 additionals. So out of his 6 attacks, this time he got 8 hits. And then rolling to wound. Oof. So you got a 6 there, a 6 there, 5 there, 5 there. We're re-rolling those. Oof! So that's a failed wound. But this time, he got 7 5+s. So that's 14 mortal wounds. Plus it takes a 6-up save on these. So 14 mortal wounds. It didn't pass any of its saves. So 14 mortal wounds plus... So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So that just, this 65-point character just went in and killed a knight from full health to dead in one fight. And it only cost 1 CP to do it. So this is a really good showcase of just how powerful this Master of Executions really is.
So there you have it, guys. My argument for the most powerful unit for his points cost in the entire game. 65-point Chaos Space Marine character that's capable of killing 50 Gaunts in a single fight phase. He's also capable of killing a Knight Titan in a single fight phase. What more do you want? He's an absolute fucking maniac. I love him to death, and I would love to see your thoughts. I would love to see if you guys have wielded him in a list or if you've come up against him before and what sort of damage you've seen him do. He can be quite swingy, as you saw in some of those dice rolls. Sometimes he rolls hot, sometimes he doesn't. When you've got the things like exploding hits and mortal wounds on 6s, it's like, well, if you don't roll any 6s, he's not that great. But with the rerolls from the Raiment Revulsive, you actually can get them with relatively high consistency. So I think he's fucking amazing. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys because there were several games over my recent events where I wouldn't have won if I didn't have him in my list. He's so powerful, and he's just a real get-out-of-jail-free card, particularly if you wield him the way I did with the Rhino at the Chosen. He's just able to sit there and hold your base, and if anybody comes anywhere near it, anyone comes anywhere near your fucking deployment zone, you just go, Mo, I call him Mo, get him! and the Master of Executions just disembarks out the Rhino, warp times, prescience, fucking boom, and he blows something up and then hides behind a ruin, and your opponent is just like, what the fuck just happened? What the hell was that? And you're like, Master of Executions, bruh, 65 points. Love it. So, yeah, chuck a comment below, let me know what you think, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Do your objective markers ever get lost behind terrain or other models and become difficult to see? Do they ever get bumped and accidentally moved during a game? And do they ever spark arguments about distances? Well, not anymore. Introducing the blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers. Made from the same material as astronaut suits, or maybe military equipment, or probably neither of those things, this 2mm thick neoprene synthetic rubber is tear resistant, water resistant, and is designed to last. But that's not all. The blog for the Blood God, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers come in a variety of different designs and styles to suit any faction represented in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. These objective markers are a perfect gift for yourself or a friend, and are a perfect way to flex and show your opponent that not only are you a smarter, cooler, and better 40k player than them, but you also have more disposable income than they do. For the low price of $25, you'll get not one, not two, but 6 neoprene objective markers, perfectly designed for 9th edition Warhammer 40k. But wait, there's more. For a limited time only, people who sign up on Patreon to support Blog for the Blood God as a Skull Champion tier $5 per month member will gain access to a custom design service where I will design a unique logo to support their gaming club, like the one I did to the left here for the Potato Farmers local gaming club here in Melbourne. Follow the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today.